Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this week's episode of News for Normies. If you have a normie in your life that needs to hear some news and not from the corporate media propaganda machine, hit that like button, share it with those normies in your life, and let's do our part to break the back of the corporate media propaganda machine. So, to start this week, there's a very big story that I don't think got talked about much on the corporate media outlets, such as CNN, MSNBC, and the like. That is the Covenant school shooter, Aubrey Hale. Either way, um, you shot and killed little kids. I don't care if I'm using the wrong name. Anyway, she was a crazy who shot up a Christian school in Tennessee. Her manifesto was finally released in full. However, a Tennessee judge tried to block the release of this manifesto by trying to get it labeled as copyright. So I think that's an even bigger issue here because a crooked judge tried to keep information from being released to the public, and this could set a precedent for other corrupt police departments to try to do the same. And why is this a big deal? Well, if something goes on and people try to submit FOIA requests, well, then they can just be simply denied because, it's copyright. So you don't have a right to that, even though it's a crime against the public. So here's a question for Democrats. Why do you kind of support this kind of stuff now? I thought you guys were all for exposing bad police and bad actors within the criminal justice system. So why aren't you getting all bent out of shape about this? Probably because it doesn't fit your narrative and agenda. Anyway, also, maybe instead of blaming one subset of the country for all of our problems, or one specific item in the country for all of our problems, maybe we should ease up on gun control laws, as they do not work. 94% of mass shootings happen in gun-free zones, such as schools, movie theaters, and places of worship. So, how many times do you have to repeat the same thing before you realize it doesn't work? I mean, that's literally the definition of insanity. Well, not literally. It's not. You're not going to find that in Webster's dictionary, but we all know that saying. Sadly, speaking of school shootings, another school shooting happened in Georgia this week, and 4 people were killed, along with many others injured in this attack. In a rare turn of events, the shooter was not killed by police or their own hand, but the shooter, who was a 14-year-old teenager, and the shooter's dad were both arrested. And right now the motive is not fully known. From what I've heard, the kid was being bullied relentlessly at school, and nobody was doing anything about this, and there you go, you have this. So, hey, any teachers or school officials watching this, why do you still support your failed zero tolerance policies? Because they don't work either. And just to clarify things, your zero tolerance policies only make bullies bully harder, which then results in things like this. Because your zero tolerance policies only make kids who stand up for themselves afraid to do so, because they're the ones that get in trouble more so than the bully themselves. So you're teaching kids to be spineless cowards is what you're doing. And to back this up, there are laws in many states that basically state that if someone attacks you, assaults you, you have the right to defend yourself with whatever force is needed to stop that threat, up to and including lethal force in several states. Now, that's not all 50 states, so check the state you live in to see how that applies to you. But here in Ohio, we have stand your ground laws now, and wouldn't you know it, when you ease up on gun control laws, gun crime, or crime in general, tends to go down. Also, and I'm not even sure if I need to put on the tinfoil hat for this one, but it is now known that the FBI was in contact with this family about a year ago. So again, I'm seeing a pattern here with almost every single mass shooting that happens like this, that the FBI had the person on their radar, whatever that means. But at one point, when do we start questioning federal level agencies too? There's a pattern here. FBI is in contact with a person who then goes and eventually shoots up a school or a church or a movie theater. I'm seeing a pattern here, and what I'm saying now is that the FBI should be completely dismantled. And I don't even want those people flipping burgers at McDonald's either. Oh, man. More about gun crime and gun statistics. The CDC has been hiding data related to firearms and gun crimes for a long time now, and it is now officially put out there. And while mass shootings at schools or churches is obviously a tragedy, deaths from rifles are extremely low in the United States. So right now there are people calling for gun control and to ban all AR-15s, and if it saves just one child's life, you're going to hear all that kind of stuff if you already haven't. Despite what Democrats say, because all they ever do is lie, armed citizens stop upwards of 3 million crimes every year. And a perfect example of this was, I think his name is Elijah Dicken, at the Greenwood Park Mall in Indiana. If you don't know what I'm talking about, here's a quick rundown. Mr. Dicken was at the mall in question here when somebody came into the mall and attempted a mass shooting with a scary AR-15. When Mr. Dicken pulled his concealed handgun from his holster and dropped the would-be shooter at about 40 yards away. Had he not been there, then the news story would have been a completely different one, and, you would have heard about it for months and months and months. But when it's a good guy with a gun, it kind of pops up and then goes away real quick, because it doesn't fit the Democrat narrative. So, stuff like that happens all the time, and also, let's not forget that people that have a concealed carry permit from their state are actually more law-abiding than even police officers in their own state. These are all official data you can find to back this up. If you do not believe me, go find it. I promise you will find this stuff. Don't use Google, by the way, because Google will lie to you. Use internet browsers like Brave or there's a new one out there I just heard about recently, Opera GX or something like that. But that was weird. Anyway, yeah. So moving on from gun crimes and gun stuff right now, moving on to some international news. 2 U.S. Marines were recently assaulted in Turkey, which I didn't even think that was possible. But both the decrepit corpse of Joe Biden and the liar-in-chief Kamala Harris made statements saying, this kind of act will not be tolerated, and, these acts of aggression will not stand. Not exact words, but that's basically what they were saying. But nobody believes it. Nobody believes any of that. Because if they did, something like that wouldn't have happened in the first place. The Harris-Biden administration has been weak the entire time since January of 2020, and weakness invites aggression. So that's why you see U.S. service members being assaulted in foreign nations like that, because they know nothing's going to happen. In bigger news, Turkey is trying to join BRICS, BRICS, which is essentially an anti-NATO pact between Brazil, Russia, India, and China so far that I know of. There might be a couple other countries wrapped up in there. And this is an attempt to make an economic pact between countries that are not in NATO, which is then possibly this could have serious economic implications for the West in the future. Also, similar to the 2 Marines in Turkey, a couple of U.S. hostages were killed by Hamas in Gaza this past week, and the response from the White House was pretty much met with deaf ears. I am so sorry, y'all. I don't know what is going on with this phone. I was trying to charge it, and it's acting goofy. So, remember this kind of stuff when it comes voting day, election day this year. Do you want more of this kind of stuff, or do you want a president who actually has a set of balls and will level a capital of a country if one hair on someone's head is, hurt? Speaking of a potential candidate with a set of brass balls, Donald Trump has been making the rounds on podcasts recently, which I, for one, greatly enjoy. I listen to podcasts all day, every day while I'm at my day job, and the fact that he's doing this shows that he's a little bit more relatable with the common people than Kamala Harris. It took her almost 40 days to do a sit-down interview, and even then that sit-down interview was absolutely horrible. So where am I getting with this? Trump was recently on the Lex Fridman podcast, and they had a pretty good conversation. It was about an hour, hour and a half if I remember right. But it was a good conversation, but also kind of boring at the same time. Lex is a very monotone, very low energy type of dude. So, but I highly encourage y'all to go listen to that. In this conversation, Lex Fridman asked Trump if he would legalize marijuana and possibly certain psychedelics such as psilocybin mushrooms, stating that there have been a lot of medical uses for these kinds of substances, for people with PTSD, possibly even veterans that have, they've seen some shit and need help to just chill out from it. Trump said, in short, that he's very, very much considering the legalization of marijuana, although he said that he wants it done in like a safe and responsible way, which I'm sure that will happen. I mean, look at how many states have legalized it already and have certain regulations in place. You got to be 21, you can't buy over this amount, yada yada yada. So again, lefties, haven't you been railing against the U.S. government to do this for a long time? Now you have a guy who's claiming that he is very much considering doing this, should he be reelected. Y'all have been chanting about this for decades now. Now you have a guy that says he's considering doing it. So, Also, Kamala Harris locked people up in California when she was AG of the state for petty drug crimes, which is also a thing that you guys, claim to fight against, but now you're behind the tough prosecutor. Don't make any sense. Moving on. Trump was originally supposed to appear in court for sentencing of his New York hush money case. I guess we're calling it that. I don't even know. It was the case he had up in New York. The sentencing was supposed to be September 18th, but was postponed until after the election. Plus, what was interesting is the original date for sentencing was supposed to be just days after his first debate with Kamala Harris, so this might throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into her debate tactics, and it wouldn't surprise me if Democrats are collectively losing their minds over this. However, at this point, it seems like it is virtually impossible that he will go to prison before the election. So, there's that for you. But, speaking of people who probably should be in prison, a man by the name of Nicholas Biasi, I think is how you pronounce his name, either way, don't care, who is the Chief of Public Affairs for the U.S. Department of Justice, was caught on a hidden camera saying that the indictments of Donald Trump are, quote, perversion of justice, end quote. This is a huge blow to the Democrat propaganda machine, aka mainstream media, or, like I like to call it, corporate media. And this is a big win for the Louder with Crowder undercover team. If you want to see and read more about this, I'm going to leave a link to that down below. But yeah, they basically pulled a James O'Keefe with this guy, got him talking on a hot mic, basically, about how the DOJ is absolutely corrupt, and they're just going after Trump with extremely biased lawfare. Oh boy, I got a couple of different stories here about the DOJ. So they are alleging charges on 2 employees with ties to RT, which is a Russian news organization that has close ties to the Kremlin. These 2 employees apparently worked for Tenet Media, which was a, I guess, right-leaning media outlet. And they allegedly funneled about $10 million into Tenet Media in an attempt to push pro-Russian propaganda. Okay. The DOJ also raided the home of the head of Tenet Media, I think it was Lauren Chen, and YouTube shut down both the Tenet Media and Lauren Chen YouTube channels. I find this interesting that this is happening right before the election. They're claiming that these people were working with Russia or something. It just seems kind of fishy to me. Tim Pool is about to file a lawsuit against the Kamala Harris campaign for egregious defamation. The Harris campaign used a video from Timcast IRL, which is a podcast Tim Pool does, in an attempt to paint Tim Pool as wanting to arrest and execute anyone who opposes Donald Trump. However, anyone who listens to Tim Pool for like 5 seconds knows that he is vehemently opposed to the death penalty for any reason. So the fact that they did this, it's blatant defamation and honestly kind of grounds for election interference, if you ask me. That's not an official statement, that's just my opinion. Man. I am a little parched. High quality H2O. Alright. More news about Kamala Harris. There were some weird campaign ads that popped up for Kamala Harris in Philadelphia, claiming that she was the official candidate for the Philadelphia Eagles. However, the NFL team denounced this, and the ads were quickly taken down. This is a real bad look for Kamala, especially in a deep blue area like Philadelphia. If you can't even have ads put up in a deep blue area like that, that means you have really lost touch with the voter base, and you're probably going to lose. Speaking of being detached from reality, Kamala was at was holding a political rally up in Michigan this past week, but was talking at the podium with a southern type accent. But also in the same day they had another rally before that in Pittsburgh, and she was talking in her normal voice. Sounds like a witch cackling all the time, but why she was doing this, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I guess she was trying to pander to blue-collar type people, but I'm going to be honest, people like that, like myself, we see right through this BS. You're literally just trying to pander for votes, and because you know your track record is not good, and you're losing ground. That's all this was. Even more detachment from reality. Kamala Harris's VP pick, Tim Walz, his family took a family photo while all wearing Walls for Trump shirts in a hilarious endorsement for Donald Trump. this should be a huge wake-up call to Democrat voters that your party has abandoned you and your principles, and to be quite frank, they don't care about you. Like, honestly, if your entire extended family is rooting for you to not win, that should tell you you're kind of a piece of shit and you need to rethink your values. But from what I've also heard from other interviews and conversations, Tim Walz has been a blowhard all his life, especially when he was in the military, and just refuses to listen to anybody else's criticism. Unless that criticism is, oh, you're doing a good job, buddy. So, yeah, that's the kind of guy you're getting with Tim Walz. Speaking of Mr. Walz, he is facing a subpoena from a Republican-led committee over financial fraud during COVID. Imagine that. Lefties, misusing funds and not doing what they said they're going to do. By the way, Republicans are not off the hook here either, because you can go find a bunch of dirt on Republicans doing shady stuff too. But considering that, this guy is running to be VP, I think this is kind of important to talk about. But, so while Tim Walz was governor of Missouri during the COVID plandemic, he authorized, money to be divided up to different charity organizations to help people who needed help, like getting groceries and food and stuff. Well, one of these organizations called Feeding Our Future apparently stole like $250 million, and Tim Walz just signed off on it. So, I hope that this throws a bigger monkey wrench into their whole operation, because this guy doesn't need to be anywhere near the White House. Oh, man. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Hunter Biden, in a rare turn of events, pled guilty to 3 felony charges related to his tax evasion case. I say it was a rare turn of events because he was originally going to plead not guilty, I think, or already did, and kind of reversed that now. It's all kind of weird. But some are speculating that this happened because Hunter is expecting his dad, Joe, to pardon him before he leaves the White House. Hopefully in January next year. But I guess he's dropping out from the president. Anyway, moving on. Remember this little bit of advice or news, too, when you go to the polls in November. There are several large retailers across the country that are shutting down stores. I know I've talked about before large chain restaurants too, like Red Lobster and I think Olive Garden. Places like that are shutting down locations across the country. Other like big box stores are shutting down stores too. I know here in Ohio there are Big Lots stores that are closing up all over the place. So, keep that in mind come November, how good, quote unquote, the economy's doing right now. And if you want more of that, if you want more of this, vote Democrat in November. If you want, cheap groceries again, vote for Donald Trump. Also, this might be a little anecdotal, but I've been seeing articles pop up on my Facebook feed stating that different, like, smaller size manufacturers are closing up shop as well. So when you have large chain restaurants, retailers, and various manufacturers all closing up shop, it's getting harder and harder for Democrat propagandists to say the economy is doing well. So how long can y'all continue to drink the Kool-Aid before just admitting you were wrong? Just, I can say those words. I was wrong. Look at that. I didn't burst into flames. Lightning didn't come from the sky and strike me in the face. It is okay to admit I was wrong. So, at one point, we all got to say it. And if you have been a lifelong Democrat and you're changing your mind now, welcome to the team. It sucks at first, but you can get over it, I promise. Drink your water, take your vitamins, you'll be alright. Alrighty. Last story here. So I got this from Jimmy Dore, actually, and I'll leave a reference to this as well. But two Israeli podcasters were on their podcast saying that if given the opportunity, they would completely eliminate all of Gaza and, quote, don't give a shit, end quote, if children are killed. They also jokingly said that if they had a, quote, button to press, end quote, that would wipe Gaza off of the map, they'd do it in a second. And they also claim that most people in Israel feel the same way. So, again, to any of my Christian viewers here, this is where your money is going when you donate to Israeli, PACs and stuff. And this is why lobbying firms like AIPAC, need to be completely removed from this country and our politics. Because we continue to give money and weapons to Israel, and their people are just like, yeah, go ahead, just gun down women and children, we don't care. Like, this guy was just literally admitting to it. So, yeah, when you slap an I Stand With Israel sticker on the back of your car, that's the kind of stuff you're supporting. Just flat out, that's the kind of stuff you're supporting. So, I highly encourage you to really think about who you vote for in America, and whether they are going to continue to give money to other countries like Ukraine or Israel or whoever else before putting our people first. So that's all I got this week, everybody. I'm gonna leave a couple links down in the description below if you want to check some of the references I am talking about. And if you got this far, like I said, hit the like button, share it with people, and with that being said, I'll see y'all next time.